In part one of episode four, How to Shop and Ship Smart, we talk about how to shop smart locally in the Bahamas. But you and I both know that buying some items in the Bahamas can be cost prohibitive or impossible because some items aren't available locally. In today's episode, part two of How to Shop and Ship Smart, we're going to discuss smart ways to import goods without going over budget. Okay, so if you've watched part one of episode four, you'll know that I am a strong advocate for supporting local businesses. But y'all, there are just two things no matter how much I try, I just have a hard time buying here: clothes and furniture. If I had to rely on local clothing stores for my clothes, y'all would see me in the same clothes every week. And I'm not talking about this shirt that I wear for my show. I can't do it. I've tried. I've literally got the money, hopped in the car, gone to the store with the intention of supporting local. And I just cannot bring myself to spend $65 on a blouse, one blouse. I'm sitting there in the store and I'm just like, I could buy 5 or 6 blouses at Ross for this price. And let's not talk about furniture. So before I moved back home to the Bahamas in 2021, I was living in South Florida. I had a couple of businesses I was running, one of which was a vacation rental business. I was managing several short-term rental properties. We're going to have a show on managing Airbnbs, by the way. That'll come a little later. But so I was managing these short-term rental properties. And through that, I just, grew a love for designing spaces. And so when I came back home and I was asked to turn one of my family members' long-term rental units into a short-term rental, I was excited. I was going to get my HGTV on and be designing. And so I got the money and I started going from store to store, furniture store to furniture store. And with every visit, the excitement just began to wear off. And sooner or later, I found myself on North Federal Highway in Fort Lauderdale, pulling into City Furniture, and I ended up buying furniture there. It's unfortunate because I would have loved to see that money stay here in the country. But shopping with US stores and importing items at times is the best way to buy the things we want and need without depriving ourselves of them or going over budget. The most critical part of smart shopping when it comes to shopping with stores abroad is understanding the requirements and process for importing the goods you're buying. Because sometimes when you don't have all of the information, you end up spending more than you budgeted, and sometimes more than the items cost locally, if it is available locally. For today's coaching session, I brought in officers from the Bahamas Customs Department. Chief Customs Revenue Officer Cordero Edgecombe from the Training Unit and Customs Revenue Officer Nadia Newton-Williams from the IT Division share a wealth of information on smart ways to use the Exempt mobile app, which we now have to use to declare accompanied baggage when returning home from abroad, smart ways to shop online, and even smart ways to bring in vehicles. For those persons they just finished beating Florida bad. And so they're coming back in and they have their items in their suitcase. Talk about what items need to be actually declared.
Anything that you would have acquired while away from the Bahamas. If you took your camera, you took your watch, you took your chain with you, and you're coming back through it, you don't need to tell us that you have your camera, your watch, your chain. But if you purchase an outfit for that graduation that you might have gone to, you should have that graduation outfit on your phone in law.
Even though you wore it at that graduation.
Even though you took the shoe and rubbed it on the carpet or rubbed it on the tile in the hotel, you should still include it.
Okay, and you need to keep those receipts.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. So you have this exempt. Talk to us But I mean, everybody, if they've done any kind of traveling, I guess within the last when did this exemption app come out?
The app is called Exempt,
Uh-huh.
and the app was made mandatory in June of last year.
Okay.
Before that, it was active, but it was more of a testing phase. But it became mandatory of June 12th of last year. So everyone has to register for it. Over the months, we've made it a lot easier, and as we go on, we're trying to uh, make it even more easier for the users. So everyone has to be registered for it, and that is something that you can do prior to traveling. Do not wait till you're traveling to register for the app. You can add your minor children, or minor persons traveling with you once they're under the age of 12. They can be added to the app as a minor, which means that they do not need their own separate account.
Okay. So children under 12 do not need a separate account. They can just be added to
Added to whoever is traveling. And once they're added in the system as a minor, they can be added to anyone's declaration as a passenger moving forward.
Okay. But if they're over 12, they would have to have their own account.
Yes, they would have to have an email to register for their own account. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then what if the child, because not every child, a 13-year-old may not have an email. So how does that, can you have one email for multiple people?
No, ma'am. The email is actually what makes it specific to that person.
Okay, so child would, an email address would have to be created for the child.
Correct. And what we're finding is that a lot of kids do. It's needed for schools. True. And these kids are very progressive today.
That's true.
It's needed for apps. It's needed for your cell phones. And a lot of kids have cell phones already. So we find that a lot of them have emails already. Sometimes their parents don't even know they have emails.
Yeah. So we come in, or even before from we're in the hotel. Correct. Abroad, we can put in those items. Correct. Put in the receipt information. So we come now, we're at customs. Walk me through that process of what happens, just for somebody who may not have traveled since before COVID,
And you made a very good point. That's the first point we want to get out there. Fill out the application before you come back. You can do it in the air, waiting on your plane. You can do it the night before. Do it having breakfast. Okay. So that is the bulk of your time right there. If you do that. Once you've submitted it, you can either pay online directly, or you can submit it to be paid at the cashier in wherever you're landing, right? So once you do that, you come into customs, you pick up your bags, you get on the line. Once you get to the officer, you can either pull up your QR code that's in your account tab, or you can hand them the passport of the person that made the declaration on behalf of your family. And they'll be able to pull up the declaration from there. They'll process you. They'll see all the items that you listed on your form. Of course, we still have to do our secondary checks to ensure that the items were classified correctly. Everything that you said is here. There's no additions, because we still could charge you additional duties if for some reason you didn't. I don't want to say that you meant to, but for some reason you accidentally did not add everything in your bags. We still have that option to add those things, assess fines, all that good stuff, put holes on your stuff. Once that's done, if everything is good, you're good to go. We clear you out the system. We validate everyone that's with you, and you're good to go.
And I'm going to say something so that you could bring clarity to it. So I'm going to get a little controversial here. Wouldn't it be nice to have an app that you can actually write down, when I get to Florida, I need 2 packages of toilet paper. I need Gain detergent. I need to buy 2 short pants for Tommy, 1 blouse for Jane, and to be able to prepare that even before you go. But we don't have that, do we? we don't have that feature yet.
So you could use this like a shopping list.
Yeah,
there is an actual shopping list.
Okay, I haven't.
Where you can actually, and as you purchase the item, you can check them off on the list and move them over to the form. I was budgeting $10 for this, but I've got it for $9.50, so it adjusts it on the form, and you get to put it in.
Correct. And for certain invoices like the Walmart and the Sam's Club, you can scan those invoices in exempt. You just have to classify the items afterwards, but it will pull over the values for you.
Really? You can you can hold up the receipt, scan. I'm assuming there's a QR code somewhere on this receipt, and it'll pull up the value of that
for you. Yeah, it'll break it down, but you'll still have to say what
it would ask you which item, what is this item, and you'd say what it is so that you can have the right rate attached to it.
Correct.
I'm trying to remember when I traveled last, because I don't remember all of these functionalities when I first used it. Yeah.
Yes,
talk about exemption now, because that's the big thing. People who won't pay nothing, and so clarify, how much exemption we get, how often we could use exemptions.
Okay, let's start off by this part of it. Why do you have to even pay taxes? Like, we'd all like a country where you don't have to pay taxes, and we can actually walk through the border, not pay any duties, not pay any VAT, not pay any levies, or whatever it is you might have your grievance with. But at the end of the day, teachers need to be paid. Yes. At the end of the day, roads need to be fixed. So until we come up with a viable solution where the country can make money without coming back to its citizens, we have to collect taxes. And so that's what gives us a job.
Yes.
Now, an exemption is what the government gives back to you to say you are allowed. It's reasonable to say that we're going to give you 2 times a year. You can bring up to $500 in value of goods to the country without paying any tax. Now, it's your exemption, which means 2 times you get to say to the custom officer through the app, I want to use my exemption, and it can go up to $500. So if you're using your exemption when you go on that business trip and you've only spent $50, your $500 now becomes $50 for that. It's gone.
Oh.
Because you've used your $500 on a $50 item. Also, what people don't take into consideration is if you have your exemption and you have $500 worth of goods that is 10% duty, and you're going to use it on that 10% duty, that's gone. So the next time when you travel, you have your personal car parts, which is 60%, and you bring $500 in car parts. You can't use that unless you use the second exemption. So you want to manage your exemptions. Use your exemption for items that are higher rates so that you could get the maximum benefit for it. And if you know that you're traveling only once a year, fine. It's okay to say use it. It doesn't matter. If you're traveling twice a year, fine. It doesn't matter. But if you travel every month, then back to school is going to be a heavy time. I may be buying high rate items at this time. I'm going to save my exemption for this trip, or I'm going to save my exemption for that trip because I know that I'm going to be doing my Christmas shopping or whatever is it. The bottom line is exemptions are not just something free that you throw at people. You should plan them, strategize around them for yourself.
In the app also, one of the features we have is that the app is going to take the exemption from the higher rated items. So that's something that's really good. And then also, which we didn't have in the past, the travelers can see once they've done their form and they're about to submit, they can actually determine whether they want to pay or if they wish to use their exemption, because it will tell you the breakdown of what your fees are, what your VAT is, and everything. So you're able to see even before you come to the custom officer and make a determination if you wish to pay or if you wish to use your exemption.
And that exemption is on, that's just on duty. Is that also on VAT, like the total of what because you're paying VAT as well, right? When you're bringing items through?
The term used in the law is duty. And the legal term of duty is any VAT, any levy, any customs tariff, any excise.
So it's all.
Yeah. It's all. Okay. All of it, you're exempt from it. The value is $500 now. Not the duty is $500. Yeah.
That's a big
right.
Okay, a lot of people get that confused. They say, well, my duty was $520, so I should only be paying $20. Then you may have $1,000 worth of goods. And the officer would tell you, no, your $500 has to be moved off from the $1,000, and then we calculate the duty on the other items.
Right. right? So the exemption is from the cost, what you spent.
Right.
Yeah. And then you pay on the back.
Wow. This is good. This is gonna help somebody. This is really good. So you have to plan. You really have to plan and strategize. But like you said, the app does have functionalities in there as well to apply it to the item that may have the higher duty
And
rate.
you can revisit. You can revisit and calculate and change and add and recalculate in the app. So even when you're in Walmart, you can be adding something and seeing what the duty would be if I were to get these items as opposed to not. So you can plan all on your trip. You don't have to wait until it's time to come home. You could have your form ready. So the only thing you do is you clean up. My flight is not leaving at 3:00 anymore. It's leaving at 5 or whatever in the app.
And one of the biggest tips we could give them also, if you know you spend more than $500, all right, let's say you spend $700, but you have some duty-free items on there, it's best if you classify those separately, because we do have groupings of items in the app. You can say, oh, I bought toiletries valued $500, right? But if you, in the app, the toiletries are going to be charged at a rate of 45% because it's grouped together. But if you sit down and say, okay, I have deodorant, I have toothpaste, I have this, I have lotion. Those things are duty free or carry a very low duty rate. So it will help you to classify those separately, then group them together.
Wasn't that great information? I was very surprised by the app features because I haven't done a whole lot of bringing items in my suitcase because I lived abroad for such a long time. I only just recently, since coming home, have started doing that. So I haven't really become an expert at exemptions and all of that. So a lot of this was new information for me and really eye-opening. I'm looking here at my notes. The fact that app has a shopping list and that could be used to plan and budget for my shopping, because oftentimes a lot of us, we plan and we budget for the shopping for what we're going to spend in stores, but we don't budget or plan for what we're going to pay when we get back to the airport or, when we have to pass through customs. And so sometimes the only plan we have is, we're going to use our exemptions, and we don't really think it through. We don't strategize like Officer Edgecombe would have said. So we really should be using that app, not just to fill out the form, but even just in the planning and budgeting stage to see, okay, this is going to cost me this and duty and all of that. So that was super helpful to know. And then the one thing that I really took away, y'all, was classifying the items separately, because you're trying to rush through customs. So, I'm thinking about the last time I traveled, and I remember I do think I remember putting toiletries, just trying to rush. I put the receipt, I put the total amount, and I just put toiletries. But by classifying those separately and actually taking the time to enter those items in separately, I could have saved. And that's why it's so important not to wait until you arrive, and are at customs, to do it the night before so that you do have time. You could be in bed and you can just be adding those items separately. I love the feature where you could just scan the Walmart receipt. That is a great feature to have. So before we get back into our conversation with Officer Edgecombe and Williams, I want to give you a few tips on how to save when you're shopping with U.S. stores while you're visiting. Let's just take Florida. A lot of us, we shop in Florida. Specifically, I'll talk about South Florida. For this shopping, I'm not talking about going on vacation. I'm talking about those shopping trips where we need certain items. And so, okay, we're going to take the weekend or take a few days and just hop on over to Florida and buy the items and come back. I'm talking about those types of trips. So the first tip that I have is to really make this trip where you're not going over budget, where you're saving. The first thing is you need to reduce your travel expenses. Okay. Here are some ways to do that. Right? We often travel on the weekend. Weekends are expensive or more expensive than weekdays. See if you could get, if you work and you need to take some vacation time, you may need to do that. So travel on a weekday. If you look, flights are typically less on weekdays. Accommodations are less on weekdays. Speaking of accommodations, another tip to reduce your travel expense is to use Airbnb or ask hotels for Bahamian rates. So in South Florida specifically, and I used to do this when I ran my short-term rental, sometimes what I would have to do is I would have to put my guest, particularly if the guest wanted to stay for a long time and I didn't want to lose that guest, but I had somebody in for one of the nights that they wanted, I would put them up in a hotel. And so there are some local hotels in South Florida that if you call, put on your thickest Bahamian accent and call and ask them, hi, do you have a Bahamian rate? I'll give you one. One is Comfort Suites in Tamarack. Call, put on your thickest accent, ask them for the Bahamian discount. So use Turo, another way to reduce your travel expenses. Those security deposits at the car rental companies, that's money that you could be using to shop with. With Turo is like an Airbnb version for car rentals. So the same way locals in a community can put their homes for rent, for short-term rental, on Airbnb, locals in specific communities can put their vehicles for rent. And I've used it a few times. It's really good. As of when did I last travel? I traveled in April. There was no security deposit. And so I love that I didn't, $250 wasn't being held up, in security deposits. So, check out Turo. Also have a budget for dining out. Again, this is not that vacation trip where you're just lounging and, you're really taking in, the visit. This is, I go into Home Depot to get these items for the house. So you can't be there, dining in these dine-in restaurants for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This trip is supposed to help you save money. So, have a budget for dining out, do the Taco Bell, do the fast casual restaurants for lunch and maybe one of the nights, then you could, enjoy a nice dinner somewhere. And then lastly, the last final tip for reducing travel expenses, use a backpack for your personal item when you're traveling. I used to be, trying to be cute, and have my nice purse and just be walking in. Listen, when you need something to put those, if your suitcase is overweight and you need somewhere to put those clothes or whatever the items are, that backpack that you have as your personal item comes in handy. So you have your, your carry-on, but that personal item is for those extra, things that are spilling out of the bag. You could shove those into the backpack. My mom, she has one of them big hiking backpacks. And that could fit, if you roll up those clothes nicely or whatever it is that you're getting, that could fit right in that backpack. All right. Spend too much time on reducing your travel expenses. Second is order online ahead of your arrival. So Amazon, which bought Whole Foods grocery store, has a counter now at Whole Foods. And so when you're shopping on Amazon, before you shop, go and identify the Whole Foods grocery store that's nearest to the hotel, or to the Airbnb or wherever the area that you're going to primarily be in, and get the address and use that as the pickup address for your Amazon orders. So that's going to cut down on time or ordering online ahead, and allow you to get those items that you need. Because sometimes you might not even be able to find the item locally on the ground in Florida or wherever it is that you are. So you might have to order it online. Ship to store, places like Best Buy and Walmart, you can ship to store. Ship to hotel. I say that cautiously because I don't want to abuse that, because after a while, the hotels, I know of hotels who stopped it. They say we're no longer accepting packages because Bahamians in particular will go crazy. And these people don't have a specific place for a room or a warehouse for packages. They're putting these packages in the hallway of the office. And so you don't want to overwhelm the hotel. If you have a few items, do send it to the hotel. But if you know you're going to be doing some tear down shopping online, ship to Whole Foods, ship to store, or they do have services locally, like warehousing services. Locally, I'm speaking specifically about South Florida, of people who will allow you to ship to their warehouse, and they will even deliver your packages for you. I have an interview with a company called Courtney's Foreign Cart. I'm not going to include it in the episode. I'll include it as a bonus. And so you can go to YouTube, or you can, I'll upload that to the podcast platforms as well. And you can listen or watch that interview to find out about that sort of service. What else do we have? So we've got reduce your travel expenses, order online ahead of your arrival. When you go into these stores, third is give the salesperson your budget. Avoid wasting time. Again, this is these short trips where you don't want to go walking around and just looking around. Tell the person, this is specifically like things like furniture. When I went to City Furniture, I said, look, this is what I have to spend. What we working with here? I need a dining room set. I need a living room set. I need, I need you to get me something in this budget. And that way you cut down on time, the time that the salesperson spends looking at items that are not within your budget. And so immediately as you walk in the door and the person says, how may I help you? Give them your budget. Next, inform the sales clerk that you are exporting. Don't go in these stores buying the items and walking straight to the checkout counter. I'm not talking about places like Walmart and stuff. I'm talking about like hardware and furniture and that sort of things, because they oftentimes have someone dedicated or who's familiar with the export process, and they will make sure that you're not being charged sales tax and all of that. So you don't want to be paying sales tax when you don't have to. That's a savings. That's what, 7%, I believe, is sales tax in Florida. Can't remember, but something like that. And then compare in-store prices with online prices. So sometimes online is having a sale. The prices has been reduced online because they oftentimes, in fact, some e-commerce websites even have an automated software, a price comparison software, where they can see the price of their competitor and the software would automatically update the price to compete with that competitor. Amazon and Best Buy and Walmart, all of them use this type of software. And so sometimes a price may change, may drop online, or there may be a sale, but it's, it hasn't changed yet in the store. And so I have gone, like one time I went to Ashley Stewart, which is a clothing store. And I went there and I knew that I saw a particular item online for a specific price. And in the store, it was much more. And so I told the lady, I said, look, see, this same pant set is this price. And she said, okay, I'll give it to you for that. And so, compare those prices in store and online. Next, I want to try to quickly go through this. Shop chain stores like Walmart in the more affluent areas. So I didn't notice this until I started managing rental properties, short-term rental properties, because I would need to pick up little supplies and things. And so I had properties in areas that were not as affluent, and then I had properties in areas that were really affluent. And I noticed that in the more affluent areas, because the areas that are not as affluent, the items with the lower prices would go a lot more quickly. So sometimes those items would not even be there and be out of stock, but they're in stock in the affluent areas. And then something that I read, that in the specifically inner city areas, like at Walmart, they will actually have items at a certain price to cover for theft in those areas. So you may want to look at moving more towards the affluent areas for your Walmarts and for those big box chain stores, to get the lower prices and a better selection of items. Let's now talk about the shopper who's sitting right here in, on whatever island they're on, and they're ordering online and they ship the item to their freight forwarder, and they're bringing those items in. What sort of mistakes or common mistakes that you've found that people just weren't aware of when they've ordered items online?
The first mistake that people make is that they don't find out information from the person importing goods. Every company has a minimum freight rate, whether it be a freight company, whether it be a freight forwarder, whether it be a courier company. They all have their minimum freight rate. So if you're saving, I'm just going to give you a wild example of this. If you're shopping online and you determine, if I purchase this cup would cost me $10 in the Bahamas. I'm able to get it for $4 on Amazon. I'm going to shop and get this to come through my shipping company. Here's what the difference is going to be. I can send it to the Betty K and have that cup being brought in from the Betty K, and the minimum freight from the Betty K would be about $65, which means after I get to half a pallet and down, everything is $65 each. So that means that my cup, the price of my cup is now $69 because it's a $65 plus the $4, and then I'm going to have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
Or I may decide to take it to a freight forwarder whose minimum freight rate may be $20, right? And so that cup becomes $24, and then the taxes are added to it. Mm-hmm. Or I can go to a courier, and their minimum rate may be $10 for freight. And so I now take $14, but I'm trying to save $6 because I can actually get that cup for $10 here. And I've already added an element in my shopping process that has already taken me far up above what the Nassau market is. One of the key things people do is they try to shop online like they do right here in the Bahamas. You pull up and you drive to a store, which is not always wise. If you did all your shopping in 1 week, you find out that you only pay car gas once to get to the shop and come back home. But we're not calculating the car gas because we already have the car, it already has the gas. We don't notice these, but when you do it internationally, you're bringing in each shipment by itself. If you're shopping on Amazon, they have a feature they call ship together, or
yes,
you can either ship on Friday or you can use as little boxes. All these are little options you pay and you click on your checkout that help you to repackage your items. One of the constant complaints we get is people saying, well, I just had this little pen coming through and they're telling me that I might as well just leave it there because I paid $5 for the pen, but now they're telling me the customs on the pen is $10. No, customs on the pen is still going to be 10% of the $10, which is only $1. But the minimum freight on that may be $10, right? And then on top of that, the courier agent would have had to put in customs document, which they're also going to charge you for. Mm-hmm. That agent also has to have other fees and things that they're going to add on to it. So that little item then becomes outpriced by the process that you've put it through. But if you strategize and you do your shopping, I do my shopping generally once a year in August. I would go to Florida and I would put things on a pallet and I would ship my pallet in. Mm-hmm. That's my detergent for the year. That's my canned goods, if not for a year, at least for 6 months, right? That's basic things that I would need. And then on top of that, if I see one or two things that I like, I can add it to the cart, to the pallet, and I don't really have to worry about it. Things that are going to perish or go stale date, I try to stay away from them.
Yeah.
Right? But I try to get my shopping done so that I don't have to go to the store every week. When I go to the store, it'll be for the perishable items. I go for fruits, vegetables, for my salad goods, things like that. My fresh meat, things like that. I'm going to go every week. But my bulk comes with one pallet. And then once that's done, I may pay $200 for the whole pallet to be cleared.
That's good information what Mr. Edgecombe is saying. But I am not like Mr. Edgecombe, okay? So you know us ladies, we like to shop. We like to get our fashion over and
and Shein
And the gym.
and our Shein. And sometimes you make a big order from Walmart. Walmart will send you one order from 10 different warehouses. All right. So you have to let your freight forwarder or your courier know, please hold those packages for me until you get all of the order in. That's one way, because they're going to charge you per package coming into the Bahamas. So if they have a flight every day they receive a package from that order, you will get charged a documentation fee. All right. So that's a good way you can also save money. Hey, hold my packages for me. And a lot of people don't know. You might buy something that's very cheap but very bulky. Air courier they charge by weight. And once something gets big, it's by dimension. By the size. Mm-hmm. All right. So something I'm trying to think of something that's very big but very cheap.
A television.
Yeah.
You may have a television because of the padding and everything around it. That television then becomes 5 feet by 4 feet. Mm-hmm. And it's about 9 inches thick. And so it's heavy.
It takes a lot
and
of
so
space.
What they do is they multiply the length, the width by the height, and they multiply that by the weight.
Right.
And then they calculate it by the rate, whether it's $1, whether it's $3, whatever the rate is. So you're going to find that, hey, this television, I caught the Brand Smart sale. The television is only causing me $299. But the freight on that television, and because it's electronic, they're going to add the electronic fee to it. So the freight may be $350.
Yeah. When would it be best to use ocean freight versus air freight?
Air freight is light and I need it now. Ocean freight is heavy and I can wait.
Exactly.
Okay.
Air freight is more expensive.
But it's quick.
But it's quicker.
Right.
Ocean freight takes more time, but the rates are better for heavier items.
Is there an advantage of going with a freight forwarder versus going with a shipping company where I'm handling or getting the broker and all of that to clear customs for me?
In a lot of cases, a freight forwarder costs you less money because a freight forwarder would essentially buy space from a freight company. So whereas you by yourself may want to bring your pallet, that shipping company may have a rate of $200 for a pallet, but the freight forwarder may be able to negotiate an entire container for $1,200. And that container can hold up to 20 pallets in it. So he's able to divide that, get profit, and still get it to you for less than what it would cost for you to actually bring in your own pallet. So in that sense, a freight forwarder makes more sense. But you still need to shop around to find out what their processing fees are going to be. And if you have a cousin or somebody that is a broker, you may get a better brokerage rate. So I can't speak it emphatically for everybody. Yeah. But generally, the freight forwarder, or what you would call one of the persons that buy space, LCL shippers, would be a better rate for you.
And also, it's based on the person. Some people don't mind the cost; they just don't want to be bothered with a broker. See, so it's based on the person.
Because some people are paying for convenience.
Yeah, people are paying for convenience. Oh, make sure that it is a licensed custom broker. If you do get a broker, make sure that they're licensed with the Customs Department.
Where can we find? Is there a list?
There certainly is on the website.
Okay, so I
Bahamas Customs. BahamasCustoms.gov.bs, and the BS is not what you may think. It's for Bahamas.
So on the website, there's a list of licensed customs
Licensed
broker.
customs
which they
brokers.
have to renew yearly. So
So
every
if
year we
you're,
update the list.
so if they're not on that list, they ain't licensed,
They're not current.
Right. We
or
can't
they're
help
not
you if you
current.
come to us crying about a situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We shop online just like we shop in the Bahamas. When Officer Edgecombe said that, I was like, that is so true. As much as we would like to think that we have the convenience that people who live in countries where they have easy access to online orders coming to their homes, we don't have the luxury of that. And so we can't shop like that where, oh, we just, feel like checking out this site. Oh, I'll buy that today. And oh, next week I'll buy that. Oh, and the week after, oh, I'll buy that. And then you have these packages coming in and you're paying documentation fee and this fee and that fee. And in the end, you're paying a lot more for the item, like Officer Edgecombe said, than, what it would have cost you here. And so you got to plan your shopping. We have to plan our shopping. Have those set times where you budget, you have your money saved. Okay, this month I'm going to do some shopping online. And so you have your different stores that you're shopping at. And like Officer Williams said, ask your freight company that you're using to hold those packages. Hold those packages. There's actually in South Florida, there are services that repackage your items for you. And in fact, when my short-term rental business, when COVID hit, the short-term rental business, nothing was happening. So I actually started, you'll find throughout the series that I'm very enterprising. I'm always looking for ways. And that's why when I knew that I wanted to have some kind of talk show, I was like, what do I like to talk about? And I said, business and money, making money and saving money. And so anyways, I started a sort of shopping service when I was in South Florida during the pandemic. So I was picking up items for people were shipping them to my warehouse, and I was repackaging them. And through that, I was like, boy, this market saturated. Plenty Bahamians who live in South Florida was doing this. And so it is a service that's available where people will receive your items and repackage them for you and deliver them in one box. Now the price got to make sense. So again, I do have that interview with Courtney's Foreign Cart. That company does offer that service. So check out that interview with them. There are other companies out there. Do your research. Or if you're watching this on a channel where there's a comment section and you know of companies, put them down in the comment section so other people can see that. Or if you yourself have a company, you're in Florida, put your information down in the comments. So try to get those packages consolidated and repackaged. Lastly, get an estimate before you buy any kind of big ticket item. You can call up your customs broker. You could use the duty calculator on the website. But like we talked about in part 1, some items don't make sense bringing in. And so you got to really do your research and make sure this makes sense, bringing the item in, or make sure that you have the amount for once the item lands. You may have the amount for the retail cost for buying the item, but clearing it is another story. Are there any sort of errors or mistakes people are making when bringing in vehicles? Anything we need to know and should be more knowledgeable about?
The biggest mistake I see people make is, I have $3,500, and so I'm going to bid on this $3,500 vehicle that includes the cost and the freight. And they think they're home free. There is no provision or no forethought on what's going to happen to the duty. So we end up with a lot of vehicles on premises that are put up for auction because the person only had enough money to purchase it. And they haven't calculated what the duty is or when they're going to need the duty. They would call every week to find out if the boat is here. They'd be up and down to the agent and to everybody, trying to figure out when they're going to get their receipts or their bills of ladings, but they still don't have the duty. So in some cases, they end up paying our rate is $50 a week for storage. That's the cheaper end of it. If it gets held by our port, I think it's $80 a day. Different places have different rates. Different docks have different rates that they charge if the vehicle has to be stored there beyond the initial 5 days. So the thing is, if you're bringing in a vehicle, make sure that when that vehicle touches the ground, you have 5 days to get that clear. After that, your cost is going up. And basically, if you buy a vehicle for $3,500, you should have $3,500 in the bank waiting for it to arrive to clear it. Because between brokerage fees and other handling fees that you're going to end up paying, you're going to be pretty much spending $3,500 unless it's a hybrid or electric vehicle. It is going to be about $3,500 to clear that vehicle after all the different charges.
Yes,
so you should have
tell
that.
People, whatever
you should have
spend,
it on hand.
That's what you need to have to clear.
So if you know you have $7,000 and you want to get a vehicle, look for something that costs half of that, and keep half for when it arrives to pay your duty. Don't look for something that costs $7,000 and then not have the money to clear it when it comes. The Japanese vehicles, that is probably one of the only issues that you get into. Another thing is, when you see a vehicle, pay attention to what the cost of the vehicle is. If a vehicle, the landed cost is $3,500. If the freight is $3,000 and the cost of that vehicle is $500, you're only paying duty on the $500. You pay VAT on the $3,000, but you're only paying duty on the $500. So pay attention to that. You may see another vehicle that's the landed cost is $3,500, but the cost of the vehicle is $3,000 and the freight is only $500. That's going to cost you a whole lot more than the one that goes the other way. All right. So pay attention to the cost of the vehicle. Also, the discussion of renewable or smart energy has become very relevant on the table. And sometimes you need to look at hybrids. There's a lot of negativity about how long the battery lasts. There's a lot of negativity about servicing them and everything. We have companies here that deal with it, right? But it gives you 10% duty as opposed to giving you 65 or 75% duty. Okay. Along with that, you're saving money on the gas side. You're helping our environment, and this whole thing, the discussion about the ecology, the environment, and everything. You then become a contributor of the benefits rather than a contributor of causing it to go down. Global warming is a relevant topic.
Yeah.
Despite what President Trump says. But outside of that, it is a considerable, if you get a vehicle for $3,000, that means the duty is going to be $300 because it's only 10% plus the VAT. So it's something to consider when you're purchasing a vehicle. The type of fuel that is used is relevant in that discussion as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Officer Williams, anything else before we go that any sort of trending thing that you've been noticing that consumers and the public should be aware of?
No, not on that instance, but I will say, for any up-to-date news, please visit our website, bahamascustoms.gov.bs. We have up-to-date news, what's going on, changes in rates, changes in anything that relates to customs. We have a help desk on there, so people, if you don't want to call us, you can just get on there and chat with us, ask us questions. If we don't have the answers, we will revert you to the persons that do. All right. Also, please check all of our social media. We have help to videos for exempt. We have help to videos for click to clear, for pleasure vessels. All of the information that you need to know, please visit either our YouTube channel, our website, or our Facebook page. All right. So that's the best information I can give you. Everything is there for you. And you can also call us if you need assistance with anything as simple as registering for click to clear, registering for exempt, we're here to serve and to help.
A lot was covered in my sit down with the officers. We talked about the Click to Clear website. We talked about returning students and their exemptions, as well as exemptions for new businesses. And so I wasn't able to fit all of that in the episode, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to have those as bonus clips on the YouTube channel and podcast channels. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media so that you know when those clips are out, and you can get the information, because it's some great information, guys.